it's probably worth just reminding the audience that that you as individuals are not all incredibly wealthy people who are sitting on pots of your own money that you're investing into companies yourselves, but actually other people are investing into your funds and your companies, and you're investing on behalf of those people. So Claudio, I'd be really interested to hear whether this is even an issue for the people that you're engaging with.
The short answer, it is yes, and it really depends on the type of organizations I speak with or we speak with. I'll give you a few examples. In the past, you think being in digital health and med tech, you're doing impact, social impact. But then somebody would tell you, yeah, but how do you measure it? And we are not able to invest unless you measure it. So you go back and you start creating your own metrics and just trying to figure out a way actually to come up with a measurement. And then you start talking to other investors, especially institutional investors. They tell you, well, you know what about diversity within your team, within your investment team, within your advisory team? We want to invest in GPs, LPs who want to invest into GPs who are actually diverse enough, because that diversity, that difference in cultures will give you added value over other investors or other GPs. And plus, because we have specific guidelines, so we want to make sure that you have enough diversity within the team. Clearly, we are a startup in the VC world for the simple reason that I left my previous partnership to set up this new startup. So I'm very aware of what needs to be done, and also it is part of my true mission. But at the same time, when you are a small company with that many people, in a way, I'm not saying that you don't have the luxury of a proper inclusion and diversity policy, but you do at the same time always have it in mind. So the short answer is yes, investors are much more aware, not just of the companies that you invest to in the investee companies, but also of the GP or the investment management company in terms of what kind of diversity does that investment management company has within the four walls, let's put it this way. And that is very interesting, I have to say.
Yeah, I was going to do that at some point. Unmute myself. Julie, would you say that you have had similar experiences?
Sorry, my house is a bit noisy at the moment. No, well, a lot of our backers are sort of public sector, so it's a requirement that we, so it's a much easier job from my perspective. But the point about having a diverse sort of right from the top, from the board, the investment committee, the team, it has to filter all the way through. And I don't think any of us are perfect, and it's an ongoing sort of. You just need to be aware of that.
Great, thank you. So we talked, and we've talked a little bit, or touched a little bit in the introductions about some of your journeys into being investors, and Rebecca, you talked a little bit about it. We've said that we need to do all that we can to encourage female founders and female leaders in companies, but clearly, as we've been talking about, it's helps if we are seeing that diversity in the investment companies that everyone's engaging with. So what can we do also to try and encourage more women to come into investment? Do you think it's something that is resolving itself, or is there still more to be done to try and get more women to come and work as investors? Rebecca, your thoughts?
Well, there's quite, I haven't got the statistics to hand, I should have looked them up, but there are pretty shocking statistics. Off the top of my head, so I'm a member of a networking organization called Level 20, which is it's the whole of the private equity sector. So investing in companies privately rather than publicly listed. So it doesn't really represent much venture, because the private equity industry as a whole is enormous, and venture investment is just a small fraction of that. But they have been set up. Level 20, the target is in the name, to get 20% of decision makers in investment firms, private equity investment firms, female. And at the moment, well, I think their last report, it had increased from 6.5% to 7%. So, you know, we've heard some pretty shockingly low statistics, but, you know, in the actual, the thing is that you kind of progress to a decision-making role. So, you know, that's actually making a decision to invest, you know, investment committee partner, that sort of level, investment director, whatever. You know, I would count myself in that stat, but, you know, you have to learn the job. So, you know, there's like all of these things, there's, you know, there's fewer female prime ministers and there's fewer ministers and there's fewer, you know, it takes time for people to sort of rise up through the system. But that said, in venture investing, people come in from the sides. It isn't really a hierarchical system. You know, actually the best, you know, some of the best funds, I think, are ones where pretty much everybody's on a level and it's just a, you know, it's a group activity. So, you know, but so the statistics are still shocking and there is a lot of work to be done. And I'm absolutely sure that having women investors to meet women entrepreneurs is an important thing to open up the whole space and increase, and you know, of course, more widely in other, I'm sure the shockings in diversity, other statistics in other aspects of diversity are just as bad. But you know, they're arranging processes of sort of mentoring and that's that sort of, and just reporting on it and encouraging women to meet with women and talk to other women. And you know, it's definitely changing. You know, the 15, that was one of the aspects of my early years 15 years ago, that I really pretty much didn't have any other female co-investors. And when I was on a board with a startup board with other investors, they were all men and I was the only woman, and that was just the way it was for many, many years. And that's definitely different now. I've got a good, you know, a good mix of co-investors and syndicate partners. But you know, it's still pretty shocking in the overall picture.
But what would be interesting would be to try and, because we talk about investing holistically, and it goes back to my earlier point around, you know, corporate venturing as a subdivision, as opposed to institutional. You've talked about private equity, and whether, you know, because I think where people end up in a fund at a seniority level does vary quite a bit, whether you've gone down, you know, maybe more of an operational route within a large organization, or you've been a founder, an entrepreneur, and then moved into VC, as opposed to whether you've gone down the management consulting route and then moved in where you've got, or the finance route. And I wonder whether maybe if you're to look below the bonnet of enough of those companies to understand whether there's some patterns emerging, mainly from where they've come from.